I really love watching Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party's communications team continue to grope around in the dark, trying to find an angle of attack on Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, and utterly failing. There's a reason that you get a bit of an impression from many Liberal MPs that they're just throwing spaghetti at the walls, hoping that something will eventually stick. This is why it seems like every Liberal MP is taking a different angle of attack on the Conservatives. I bet the Liberals are just doing a big data collection sort of scheme right now, just seeing what gets the best engagement. But so far, they found nothing that's particularly useful for them. Calling the Conservatives far right MAGA extremists does not help you fight back in the polls when everyone thinks that your policies suck and that you've been a very socially toxic government for the country. People are kind of tired of all the divisive rhetoric from the Liberals, and when the divisive rhetoric isn't even coming with good economic outcomes, you're truly dead in the water. But here's something that the Liberal Party posted to its official X account the other day. It says, is using American far-right talking points that bully vulnerable kids really common sense, trying to go after Pierre Poilievre for having some of the same stances on social issues that Premier Daniel Smith has in Alberta? Stances, by the way, that are about 80% popular with most Canadians. This is not the angle of attack the Liberals want to be using. Obviously, I am not a Liberal. I do not like the Liberal Party. But like I've said in so many other videos, it frustrates me to see communication teams for these different parties being paid easily millions of dollars a year to just suck at their jobs. This is such a horrible way of trying to do politics, is these just baseless attacks that if people think about it for a few seconds, really doesn't hold up to scrutiny and just makes you seem flailing and desperate. Anyways, here is the 20-second video that came along with that tweet.
Where do the Conservatives stand on these issues that she talked about in the video?
Oh, we stand for common sense, like on everything else.
Trudeau does not have a right to impose his radical gender ideology on our kids and on our families.
Okay, who is going to vote Liberal based on that clip? Who was on the fence or they were going to vote Conservative, watch that video and is now thinking, Pierre Poilievre opposes gender theory? Well, I guess I can't vote for him. There is nobody even in the Liberal base that is going to vote Liberal harder based on these talking points about parental rights that the Liberals have, that somehow parental rights are secretly an attack on vulnerable children, or it's secretly some sort of authoritarian play to try and cram down on the trans community. Nobody believes this, which is why the polling reflects that people are voting in favor of parental rights, that people like parental rights issues. This is why Premier Blaine Higgs in New Brunswick is actually having a fighting chance to win re-election in a province where people haven't liked his government because they've been having to do deep economic and public finance reforms to get the frankly, get the province functioning again. And a lot of those have been rubbing people the wrong way, but he's been buying people back with his stance on parental rights. This is not a great play for the Liberals to try and oppose this. If anything, they should just go silent on the issue, and maybe people will think that they're on side on parental rights. They're fighting with the NDP and the Greens and sort of the Bloc for about 20% of the electorate. 20% of the electorate is explicitly anti-parental rights. So, do you think that you're going to be able to get that 20% to only vote for you? Even if the Liberals got that 20% to only vote for them, maybe they'd increase their numbers by 3 or 4%. And it's pretty unrealistic that they're going to capture all those people because the NDP is always going to outflank them on their left and promise even more progressive social policy than Trudeau is willing to do, because his base of voters has always been mostly women and people who are on pensions, like people who are pensioners. They don't like radical social policy. They mostly like security and stability. They like having their benefits maintained, maybe grown over time, nothing too crazy. But the Liberals constantly under Trudeau have been pushing more and more to the left to try and keep up with the NDP in such a way that they are hemorrhaging their older voters and women in favor of college-age progressives who the NDP are always going to be able to promise more to. And these voters are not the sorts of people who are, just like a lot of people in their 20s, are not sober-minded voters who are going to vote for those who can put together a competent policy playbook that's realistic. They're voting in favor of idealism. And so the Liberals running down this idealism rabbit hole are leaving behind all the people who just wanted, a Chrétien era type stable liberal policy. And now the conservatives are cleaning up with these voters because they're promoting a stability. And as much as the liberals are trying to freak people up by saying, ooh, the conservatives are going to cut spending, the conservatives are going to cut your pension, that's obviously not going to happen. The conservatives are going to cut things, but cut things that no Canadian has a problem with cutting, other than the bureaucrats who work in the departments who are going to experience the cuts. Nobody believes that we need the level of HR that we have. Nobody believes we need to be funding anti-racism programs. Nobody believes that we need to be sending $30 million to foreign countries to promote feminism. This is all stuff that people know we can cut. The federal budget right now is like $449 billion. In the last year of Harper's government is only about $269 billion. Nobody believes that the budget needs to be 2/3 higher than it was 9 years ago. Nobody's experienced an increase anywhere in the ballpark of 2/3 in terms of extra benefits, in terms of a higher standard of living. They've only seen actually living standards fall at least over the past 3 years. So all this money, people realize, has become a poison pill. But here's another liberal advertisement, not going after the conservatives, but pitching themselves. And watch this and see if it feels like there's even any meat on the bones here. In my sense, not to poison the well preemptively, there's the liberal messaging and trying to push themselves has become so empty and sloganeering that I don't think it appeals to pretty much anybody anymore. Everyone knows that when they've been in government 8 years, you don't get to run these sorts of ads.
We have in this country a richness and a depth that the world is envious of. And it doesn't mean everything's great. We know things are challenging for Canadians right now, which is why we continue to step up with investments to support Canadians and push back against Poilievre's clamoring for cuts to programs that Canadians rely on. We will be there for people as we've always been in these difficult times as we build that prosperous future that everyone is looking for in this country. We have remembered that the economy is not numbers. The economy is people.
Dude, that is such a last shriek on the retreat kind of an advertisement. Imagine that you've been in government for 9 years almost, and that you're going to tell people, the economy isn't about numbers, it's about people. Well, why don't you want to talk about the numbers, Justin? It's because the numbers suck. When you actually look, and even when you talk about people, per capita numbers are horrible. That's been the worst performance for the Canadian government, is in the per capita category. Yes, the GDP has gone up. It's naturally going to go up whenever you add people into the country because they're going to at least generate some productivity. It's really hard to add people to the country and lose productivity. But we've been adding people, but the amount of productivity is not keeping up in the per capita sort of area. So the actual standard of living of people has been falling. That entire advertisement, just the idea that, well, we're actually envied around the world. It's this left-wing nationalism we have in Canada, that everyone's secretly jealous of us and our social programs and how progressive and inclusive we are. Okay, this is a great ad to run if you're running in 2015 as Justin Trudeau. You're not in government. You're pushing back against the Harper government. The Harper government has lost focus on people. They're only focused on numbers. But when people actually experience what your government is like for 9 years, it's really hard for them to just hear that, we're envied and that the economy's, more about than just the numbers. It's about the people. Well, we all feel pretty crappy, so I don't feel like this government really values people that much. I'd rather get back to a Harper government that maybe cared more about the numbers. I don't actually believe that Harper just cared about the numbers, but maybe that was a more expedient, more productive way of doing government, was focusing on metrics we can actually measure rather than the people. The people don't like Justin Trudeau, and so actually reminding people that he's thinking about you is not a great way of doing things. And you can tell that the Liberals are kind of realizing that they have to do some policy pivots here, because this was just announced today. And it says, we're taking strong action to build more homes faster and to make sure Canadians have more access to purchasing homes. We're extending the ban on new foreign ownership in Canadian housing. Imagine the fact that now the Liberals are actually having to push more restrictive immigration policies now in order to make up for the hundreds of thousands of people that we could not house over the past few years. And this foreign housing ban really isn't going to do too much. If anything, I think that they're only putting this ban into place because most foreign housing buyers are fleeing the country, because I'd rather buy a house in Texas or Florida where it's cheaper rather than stick around Canada where I'm having to pay $2 million for a tiny house in Vancouver just to get some money over, like, offshore if you're like a Hong Kong or Chinese buyer. Anyways, just absolute, like, a horrible downfall for the Liberal Party. One that they 100% deserved, but I don't think that Justin Trudeau is going to be able to pull out of this tailspin. He is fully trying to shipwreck his own party at this point. He doesn't have the humility to admit that a lot of his policies has failed, that his leadership style is unappealing to people. So I think he's just going to double down until he's out of office in order to feel like he's going to come back in 10 years and talk about how, well, if the Conservatives do a single thing wrong, he'll come back and say, well, I think people now recognize the more compassionate, tolerant, equitable way I did government and why the Conservatives are just failing Canadians. He's just trying to shore up his legacy right now, not actually win the next election. Anyways, that should be it for me today. I just want to remind everyone, Wyatt Claypool, I'm running for the Calgary Signal Hill Conservative Party nomination. If you live in Calgary Signal Hill, buy a Conservative Party membership and check out my website, WyattClaypool.com. And then I also have the Give, Send, Go link I usually put in the description. We're being sued by a billionaire over something extremely stupid. It's a defamation case where he's suing us over things that we didn't even say about him, and which are all also factually true, but he thinks he has enough money to overwhelm us and force us to give him a fake apology in order to basically bolster his perceived power in Canada. Anyways, that's it for me today. I'll see you guys in another video or live stream I might do. And other than that, I hope everyone has a fantastic day and that we get through this Liberal government as fast as humanly possible.